Okay, so here as we enter turn 37, 1670, and remember this is a new technology turn, not that anybody's ready to reach it yet, but it means it'll start decreasing and coming closer. Anyway, events for the turn: the French king died, kind of as planned, was replaced by someone not quite as good, militarily as, or administratively as good, which is really the important thing, but military and diplomatic abilities a little less. Of course, that doesn't affect. I find this kind of funny. I almost wish leaders in a country were kind of based on the current rulership of the country, because it tended to be those leaders the game rates well militarily, those rulers the game rates well militarily, have the best military leaders as well, or start generating them. Basically, wise military decisions involve promoting the right people as well. So that's kind of a, you get this kind of a historical thing because of the historical leaders. Of course, you'd have a totally different kind of game if all the leaders were ahistorical as the monarchs are. And one of the options actually is, here's all the historical monarchs, play with them. They die when they die. That gets rid of the dynastic crises and stuff happening as randomly as they should. I like the more random version of the game, but I can see there's sort of, again, it's one of those compromises I could never have made. All right. So let's see what happened this turn. France and England both got an agricultural crisis. Spain got agricultural technique increase, which will help their income. Of course, these kind of things jiggle your income around, and especially in terms of the positive ones, they can break up what's kind of keeping your stability at a higher rank. I remember after last turn, I'm going to start playing with the correct rule that I remembered before but couldn't find, which was you get a stability increase and decrease off major victories, off major battles. They're very seldom to begin with. We've only had a handful of major victories in the game so far, one of them last turn. Okay, so for the political events, these came by kind of cheaply. One was a little revolt. One was Formosa's been claimed by China, and this is one of the weird things in the game. Formosa's not exactly a prize property, but with a 9 resistance to being influenced and only 1 resource in it. But even given that, no one should ever go there, simply because it would be wiped out at this point, and you can never go in now. And that's one of those things, if you know the events, you wouldn't go there, but the game kind of prevents you from wanting to go there anyhow. England got the Bill of Test. This is from next period. I've had to build my chart for the period 6 already to cover that. This just prevents them from being converted from one away from being Catholic. So the only person who could do this is the Dutch. They could conquer England and demand that it become Protestant. There are no real Protestant majors otherwise, so that's the effect of that. And that's it. That's it, the revolt. The biggest thing sitting on the plate right now is the Habsburg death, which forces a new emperor to be elected. Really, really unlikely that anybody's going to oppose this. I don't think it's in anybody's victory conditions this turn. The French have a penalty if there's a Habsburg or Spanish Holy Roman Emperor, but it's a minor one. They chose not to take the pick. But yeah, I mean, we're already set up for the big event. So the question then becomes, Russia's a freewheel, and they're probably going to move against, say, the steppes or something, and Turkey's a freewheel. I was thinking Venice, but now I'm converting more over to attack the Knights, because I can attack Spain that way. Or because I must attack Spain when I attack the Knights, they're a vassal. So I get a free cast a spell, I can take them out. Spain's rather busy, Spain and Turkey can agree not to prosecute the war particularly, and once I knock the Knights out, white peace, hey, it's over. I think Spain can accept that. They probably should have never given the Knights a home, to tell you the truth. One of the problems in the game. Quite often, Spain's not interested in opposing Turkey in the later part of the game. All right, onward. Okay, briefly for the diplomatic phase, the Turks indeed declared war on the Knights, and that becomes a declaration of war against Spain. Spain and Turkey have agreed not to prosecute it. They're going to have a white peace. Spain's perfectly happy giving the Knights up at this point. They think Turkey's not a real threat. And if they can get away with the Habsburgs being, aligned with them for the rest of the game, it's perfectly fine. The other, though, is the Russians made a choice to attack Astrakhan. Now, this is a dangerous time to do it. First of all, Astrakhan's a bigger country than the steppes, which is one of the reasons. But the reason they didn't really want to do the steppes is they had to march up to the steppes and cross the river. Even at the Urals, they could get intercepted. And they thought, well, if I got to take that risk, I might as well take Astrakhan first. And once I get that, I can shift up and get my forces in place for the steppes. I'm not really fond of this because it is a bigger army, and Islam's technology is the same as theirs and is going to actually bump up to the Baroque. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to hit here. Now, the Russians think they can get a technology boost too, but they got to build an army. They've got a lot of things to do to face Astrakhan. It would have been better, I think, to go after the easier target this turn, and when things were settled, next turn maybe go for Astrakhan. But, choices made sometimes are foolish. Everybody ignored the Habsburgs, so we gotta roll to see how long they're gonna last. They're gonna be elected emperor again. The voting, if I paid attention, France has Cologne, which is worth 1. The Dutch have 1 as well, so that's just 2 of them. For diplomacy, though, the Swedes were brought up to Expeditionary Corps, and attempts were also made on Denmark and Ohio, neither of which succeeded. The Spanish got some success, though. They pushed Bavaria up to Expeditionary Corps, Savoy from totally neutral to entry in war. They can't activate them this turn. The activations had to come before the diplomacy. But that sets up a couple more allies that they can bring into play. They also were looking at trying to pull Hesse into this. If they could get Hesse at a high enough level, they could push it. The Spanish are spending a lot of money on their allies. They also sent $50 to the Dutch. The Dutch kind of wanted more than that, but Spain said, look, I'm having trouble with money too, and you're not doing badly. You've got some free ships and everything. I would have liked to have given you 100, but we'll see. At least I can help fund you a little bit. Look to England, maybe they'll help you. No. England's actually looking at, France is busy. I can sneak some victory points in here. And also building up their own military alliance so that they don't have to rely on another major power to take France on. With things like Sweden and Denmark and Portugal, they have several new heavy armies that they can throw into the fray, and maybe just one ally would be enough to really face the French. The French are potent, and then they can concentrate more over here in the European side of things, or on the non-European side of things. All right, working through the military, the administrative phase, and, well, I did England, great, building up lots of boats, etc., to try to pull Cromwell over, more armies. England has so much money. They spent 517, so they're sitting on nearly $400. They're thinking next turn they may offer the Dutch or the Spanish some extra cash to continue their war against France, unless the English can come in on it. If the English can actually come into the war, if they finish the Royalists off, then, well, they can probably use the money to build excess armies, etc., because they're not that rich. The Turks, though, they're the interesting point here. They did the military reform, and all the pashas are gone. Their free maintenance is lower, but they have more money now. They're actually building up their army, increasing it. Remember, they're at war with Spain, and most importantly, the Knights. They had to build up their navy to carry an army to face the Knights. But they also get a couple of little revolts here that they got to deal with. One here. One showed up in the Habsburg area, which, you know, is considered to be expected to be Turkish still at this point. That's going to cause a problem for the Habsburgs. That's just the way it happens. This would actually have given Turkey a casus belli against the Habsburgs as long as it's there. Could happen. Could happen. The Turks have one hell of a little army that at this point. And with the Habsburgs kind of tied down against France, they could actually regain some of the territories they used to. They lost earlier. Of course, by doing so, if they take any of those territories, they open the world up to the Habsburgs attacking them whenever they're weak, whenever they're too busy to handle it. So maybe they're better off just free. All right, well, we're ready to push into the actual rounds here. You know, France, I believe, had to take out a loan this time. Too shocking, really. And they're they could only get $100 national. And their army, their navy, it's not as big as they would have liked. They had a big income drop hit with the agricultural crisis. So they really weren't able to build themselves up any bigger than they were. They were about as big as they can command. There were no mercenary leaders available, so they don't have enough generals, really. They have one new general, Vauban, who they could have put another army in place and used just him to, say, siege Poitiers and had Luxembourg lose. But the truth is, the armies they're facing are too strong for a single army under, say, Luxembourg to be terribly valuable. So it seemed better to invest some of the money, etc. They're planning on continuing on in their attacks against the Spaniards up there. The Dutch, again, are planning on making an incursion into Indonesia, but it didn't work last time. In terms of other powers, well, Russia built up its army, prepared for Astrakhan. Astrakhan got a kind of crappy role, but they are an army plus now. They have no leaders. They do have better technology, though, than the Russians do. They're following the Islamic technology, which is almost over the Baroque limit because the Turks were able to push it past, and due to the reform. The Russians are way back at just having passed musket at this point. It's not it's not terrible. They're on the same level, which means the Astrakhan just gets a +1 on their attack because of the difference in the spaces. But beyond that, and that's pretty big. A +1 on each roll is pretty big. But being on a different table as well as that would have been ridiculous. Russia wants to finish that off quickly, and it's going to be kind of hard because there's a 3-point fortress there, and we knew about that. The Knights also got an increase in fortification, and they got, they have their navy in place. The Turks are kind of considering, well, if I can take the Knights out quickly enough, I can just march into Sicily, and no one's going to stop me, really, because I'm at war with Spain and not with the Dutch, and the Dutch fleet is the one that's down there. We'll see. But they're certainly toying with that idea. Habsburgs got another army up here under Montecuccoli. They've got enough forces to go after Milan now. And there's not a lot to stop them. Here's the problem. We've got Luxembourg down here with the intention of taking more territories. Conde is trying to defend against these. Turin, and here we see the Spanish have put their king. He's got... Spain has... a level 9 military, which means they're likely to get a good roll for their leadership. We don't know what it is yet. I think you're supposed to roll it as soon as you put them on the board, but I like to roll it, well, yeah, it really does have to be there on the board. Let's see how that works. There's a little chart here. I don't think we've ever rolled one of these. Alright, so we're going to roll 4 dice. The first die is the maneuver rating. And what we do is we compare the military rating, which is 9. So we'll be rolling all on this column. And you can see, you can still get a 1, but you can also get very, very good. Okay, so the maneuver rating will be a 3, which is pretty decent. Firepower is a 3. Looks like we're getting a decent leader, and we needed another leader, that's the point. Shock is only going to be a 2, but this isn't too bad. Now this one, we have a -3 to siege. Now kings, for whatever reason, generate good siege values quite often. And in this case, we got a 5, which will give us a -2. So we end up writing this down, I believe, as 3, 3, 2, -2. So he's got a very good siege rating. And that's one of the things. Very few leaders have a -3 siege rating. But a king can get that with the high-rated king. Anyway, this is going to cause some problems. He's not Turin, there's no question there. But, you know, the Spaniards were kind of out of leaders. This one's going to go over here. We've actually used one of our leaders over here in the New World. He's got the little symbol so he can, and he fits in properly in terms of the strengths, etc., that he's allowed to be there. It's very difficult because I had to have an army here in order to... No, I did not. But I had to have the king on the board in order to have that leader there because he outranks this one. I think, I hope, if he doesn't, I have this mistaken. Yeah, he's a D, that guy's an F. So D is closer up. Anyway, that's the way it goes. Alright, we'll hit these rounds. This is going to be another painfully long turn, I think. And it may just, this war may last forever because nobody wants to surrender. Spain certainly doesn't. They don't want to lose the Habsburgs. And France doesn't want to give up because in the event that they're losing the war, they lose a couple of provinces. That's pretty painful. They can't get a white peace. They can't get a limited peace here. So that's kind of a weird issue. I'm assuming, though, like I said, at one point they can drive the Dutch out of the war. And if they succeed in that, they can't do it with the Habsburgs. But if they succeed in driving the Dutch out of the war, or some of the miners or something, then they're in a position where they could turn all their force against Spain. I want to revisit the Dutch thinking behind joining this war. So they had two concepts in play here. One is they don't want the Spanish to have the Habsburgs aligned with them because that weakens the Dutch options. But they also want to humiliate France. And letting France win this war and defeat Spain and take 2 more provinces seemed unacceptable, especially since everybody was built up and ready to fight France. Okay, fair enough. So where do you make the decision? Well, the decision came down to, okay, let's say we leave the war alone. If France wins, the Habsburgs are disassociated, and we're all, you know, in the same position. That's for the best. But what if France loses? Then the Habsburgs are still with Spain. I can't change that by not being in it. And I haven't gained anything. So then the question is, well, you know, which is a bigger deal to me? France's gain, my possible gain against France, or the availability of the Habsburgs? And, you know, it was a tough choice. Anyway. All right, and what amounts to the halfway point, which really isn't. The only thing left to play is France of this round. Russians charged into Astrakhan. First round, the firing round, went very well for them. The second round, very poorly. They lost their main leader, Romanov, and were driven back. They still have a shot to go in again. They have a lot of cav, but not a lot of infantry. They outnumber Astrakhan. They could have done okay. The English continue their siege and are bringing forces into play. You can see down here as Cromwell has taken over the main army. They also got their fleets in. They had the Smyrna fleet allocated to them, and they sailed that to their port. and they also got their Indies fleet in, and neither one badly damaged. The Spanish fleet, their main ocean-going fleet, which they had built up, well, that sailed out here with some Dutch troops, and it's down to 3 ships now. It was at, like, I don't know, close to 20, and Van Diemen is in charge of it. There's no real great reason for Van Diemen to even be there because there's no defenses here. But at least they can sail him somewhere, maybe drop him off at Aceh or something, in order to expand their trade empire. Tindore actually still has room to grow more, but there's good reason to add more territories. Aceh's one good, maybe even better, is down here in Vietnam. That's got, well, it's a little easier, that's all. Okay, the Spanish gold fleet made it in. You see the Spanish troops moving up through Mexico, getting ready to face the French. The Dutch still haven't activated yet down there. Over here, the Spanish king received reinforcements. Elsewhere, not much for Spain, but Ensigen charged across the Rhine, and he was caught by Conde, and his army was pretty much demolished. Not a defeat, but heavy losses. Meanwhile, we've got a breach here, which I didn't want to take advantage of. It's just such a crapshoot when you do that. The Habsburgs marched into Luxembourg, though, and set themselves up there. So they'll force Conde to make a choice. He's got to intervene somewhere, and it's kind of troubling. The French have to play defense here only. And we also have Habsburgs. They had a major campaign. Actually, they had 2, but they only used 1. Moving into Milan under Montecuccoli in order to put more pressure on. The French have a really hard row to hoe here. If they had a lot of money with their superior forces, they could do a lot of damage, but they don't have that kind of income. Later in the game, countries start getting that kind of money. All right. And finishing things up for this first round. Oh, what do we got? Just had the French movement, and they managed to march in and grab whatever I got there. I don't know what I call these things. This one's Monterey. And beyond that, Turin has marched over. It's ready to take on the Habsburgs. Now that opens up things for the Spanish king. This is one of the problems, is he's got to bounce around and try to figure out where he's going to go. This should be up here, actually. I wanted to move closer. Likewise here, he could have attacked Ferdinand. Instead, he attacked whoever this dude is. Destroyed his army. But now Conde's been successful here. But this is the thing. The French are playing defensive. Now, for this war, it doesn't matter too much. But they would like to capture another territory so that they can get the full scope of the gains that they can get from this war. Because they can't actually take a monetary bribe in this or anything along those lines. I'm going to cut this one and send it up. I know the next one may be short, but you know, I just can't do these quickly and capture the detail of a war of this nature.